I mean, Bitcoin could really take a chunk of that store of value capital that's out there, right? People own equity also because it's a hedge against that inflation, right? So if you think of all the assets that people own just because they want to keep up with inflation, you could have a big chunk of that go to Bitcoin.
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Dan Tapiero discusses about Bitcoin ETF. According to Dan Tapiero, there has been a lot of discussion on Twitter about the necessity to remove Binance before BlackRock could acquire the ETF. But Dan Tapiero not sure if that's precisely correct. But it might be that Dan Tapiero believe it's a big look would adore it if the forces of freedom could invade, take over, and remove, well, you know that Dan Tapiero always supported free markets. He thinks that money is sacred, despite how hard it is. However, Dan Tapiero also a practitioner who is concerned with the truth, and based on my estimation, the initial step towards achieving this during the next 5 years will be the forces will collide in the center. And trust me when he say that this isn't an extremely fulfilling response. But you are aware that this compromise is not ideal. There's no place for compromise if you listen to Saylor. That's just their point of view, and Dan Tapiero happened to agree with a lot of it. However, in actuality, he don't believe it can go that way, since humans aren't actually constructed that way. Dan Tapiero believed that throughout time things could occur, but there are also how much time has passed since, well, you know where the old world is and where the new world might be in 20 years, since it's definitely doable. Dan Tapiero say in my opinion, I'm not sure about I believe that the government is already implementing Bitcoin. El Salvador is currently undertaking fantastic on their purchases, but I believe there's a greater chance that smaller governments, adopted Bitcoin before us companies, Dan Tapiero. Aware that there is a perception that we corporate people will begin to include Bitcoin in their statement of accounts, and lots of things Dan Tapiero discuss, so please watch the video to end, and share, subscribe our channel Everyday Finance, thanks.
I think that's right. I know that's been a big thought on Twitter that they had to take out Binance before BlackRock has the ETF. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it could be. I think it's a big, look, I actually think, I would love the forces of freedom to come in and dominate and spread. I've always been a free markets guy. I love I believe in sort of the sanctity of money and all of the hardness of it. But I'm also a practitioner focused on, the reality. And my guess is that at least the first step of this over the next 5 years is the forces will meet in the middle. And I know it's not a very satisfying answer. Compromise is not optimal. If you listen to Saylor, there's no room for compromise. It's just, that's the view. And I believe in a lot of that. But the reality is that I don't think it can play out that way because human beings aren't really built that way. And so I think that over time that might happen. But there's too much time between today, where the old world is and where sort of the new world could be 20 years from now. I would say it's certainly possible. I don't know I think that government adoption of Bitcoin, it's already happening. El Salvador is now, they're doing great on their purchases. I think it's more likely that smaller governments adopt, Bitcoin before U.S. corporations. I know there's a view out there that U.S. corporates will start to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I don't really see that for a while because they're just not there. They're mentally, intellectually. The emerging markets, it could certainly happen. And maybe, you have one country, then you have 10, then you have 50, and then it becomes overwhelming. I think that's very possible. That's very possible. But it's just such a great question. And the about face from Larry Fink, I think will do a lot to push prices higher and give people access. I mean, I know very sophisticated investors who will not, buy Bitcoin or ETH, even on Coinbase. It's like ridiculous. They don't even want to go on Coinbase to buy. Forget about having your own wallet and doing, having a ledger and everything else. They're older. They don't want to, they say to me, we're just going to wait for the ETF. I mean, imagine we're going to just wait for the ETF. I'm thinking, I'll have my guys take you through it if it's complicated. Don't worry. They just don't want to do it. They've been, you can your equities in your brokerage account. You push a button. They've been doing that for 40 years. And so that's America. And I'll tell you, 15-20% of this volume that trades in the world is outside of the US. And so this to me is really the first truly, after gold really, but this is the first truly global macro investment trade of all time, because every person in every country has the ability to own the asset. There's no asset like that in the world. There's nothing ever that's been like that. And you could be living in the slums in India and be accumulating your Bitcoin and not even able to not even a bank account, but be a part of the country system, right? So it's unbelievably powerful, and it's exhilarating for the individual as well. And again, we think about the individual, we think about ourselves in the US, but there's 7.5 billion people out there. Okay, maybe for 1 billion or 2 of them, this is out of their reach at the moment.
Dan Tapiero understand that the US authorities don't understand it because they fear that they would lose power. But the truth is that if the US had been astute about this, they would have entered and taken over the US dollar stablecoin, entirely market, and each and every individual entering to purchase digital tokens, you are aware of stablecoins, which are fiat-backed tokens that are also fiat-backed, desire the dollar as if they could have entered the market. Dan Tapiero, not sure if they have yet, and made it simple for individuals to possess digital currency appropriate moreover. Dan believed that stable currencies are crucial as they're the entry point for obtaining Bitcoin and ETH. Perhaps not everyone appreciates this entry point, but the truth is it's a gateway. And Dan Tapiero believe you already know that the world will absolutely blow apart. Let's back to the Dan Tapiero interview.
I wanted to have the name of a fund that I was pretty sure I was going to be right on. So that wasn't necessarily my view. I said, look, a 30x return in the traditional world, no one makes 30x on anything in the public markets. I mean, the markets that trade. So I thought that was enough. But the reality is, if you think if there's 500 trillion of total wealth or whatever the number is, even 5% is 25 trillion. There are a lot of assets like real estate people invest in often as a store of value. Art, paintings, store of value. I mean, Bitcoin could really take a chunk of that store of value capital that's out there, right? People own equity also because it's a hedge against that inflation, right? So if you think of all the assets that people own just because they want to keep up with inflation, you could have a big chunk of that go to Bitcoin. I just don't think it happens that quickly. And, we have several hundred investors in the fund, and they're from all around the world. And I've talked to over 1,000 investors, potential investor meetings, etc. And, I hear firsthand the resistance from people who you might not think would be resistant, even now.
According to Dan Tapiero, look, a 30x return in the traditional world, no one makes 30x on anything. Referring to the trading markets, Dan Tapiero reasoned that was sufficient. But in actuality, if you consider that there are 500 trillion of overall wealth, or whatever the figure may be, even 5% is only $25 trillion. You people frequently invest in a variety of assets, such as real estate, as a store of wealth. For example, paintings are a common asset worth indeed. Bitcoin has the potential to significantly reduce that capital storage. It's true. Individuals possess equity as a safeguard against that appropriate inflation, therefore. If you consider the possessions people own solely to keep up with inflation, you could have a significant portion of that go toward Bitcoin. But Dan Tapiero don't think it happens that fast, and as you are aware, there are several hundred global investors in the fund. If you learned something from this video, then please like this video and subscribe our channel Everyday Finance, and we will meet in next video. Thanks.